Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Southern Stone Restaurant here at the corner of Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington, Indiana, as Indiana opens up the season tonight against Eastern Michigan in a game that took all kinds of turns, Todd Leary. I thought we were going to have nothing but mostly positive things to talk about, except the three-point shooting, which was bad throughout the game. But the free throw shooting was horrific and never got better, and the shooting disappeared, and the defense, which was smothering in that first half at times, also seemed to get lost at times. So it was all kinds of stuff to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall the key of what Mike Woodson set out for this team was, or prefaced the game with saying our defense is in front of our offense. And, they're farther along. They're gelling a little bit better than the offense is, which with a new coach and a lot of new players and a new system, you probably would expect that. The stat sheet, honestly, even though I'm such a stat person and I rely on seeing, how well guys shoot and how well guys do different things, the stat sheet's really not that important for tonight. And I think the coaching staff will probably feel the same way about that or close to that. And sure, it's an issue. I mean, a lot of the same issues that Indiana had last year in shooting the basketball, I think they showed that they're still around a little bit. I think Parker Stewart got off to a good start, which made everything look a little bit better at the beginning of the game. If he doesn't make those first two threes, I mean, we're looking at a 4-0 ball game about 6 minutes in. So, there's just a lot of things that first and foremost, this is a fun team. These guys like each other. They like the coaches. They like playing. I mean, how excited are we all for basketball to start? And I know the result. Everybody I probably assume wanted a 50-point win in this game. And it didn't work out that way, but it was a win. Ohio State struggled to win their game tonight. I mean, they win by one, I think, at the very end of the game, but we're behind with less than 10 seconds to go. It's just different. Like, I'm not alarmed by the result of the game. I don't like that they didn't shoot the ball better than they did. I think we all would have felt a lot more comfortable looking ahead and being super optimistic. But overall, the defense in the first half was the best I've seen, and I don't even know how long. Like, it was tenacious. It was in your face. It was aggressive. And there was just a lot of really good things about that happened defensively. I think the second half, this would happen, I think, with most teams, but especially with as much, excitement as they had going into the game. I think they lost focus a little bit, especially defensively. A lot of the things they were taking away in the first half, they weren't taken away in the second half. Driving lanes and people were able to drive and penetrate and kick, and guys just weren't quite as sharp in the second half, which I think is probably to be expected with young guys and new guys. Even though the transfers are older players, they're still new to the system, and everybody's new to Mike Woodson's system. So, there's going to be some struggles all year long. The stats are not good. I mean, 4 for 24 from the 3-point line, that's as bad as you get. I mean, that's just not good.
Trace Jackson Davis, the free throw line, that's still an issue.
Yeah, I mean, Trace shooting 3 for 7, and he made 2 at the end of the ball game, so he was 1 for 5 through the majority of this basketball game. I mean, that's struggling, and Xavier Johnson struggled at the free throw line a little bit. Those are just guys that, I think that's been their MO throughout their career. I mean, they're 60 to 70% free throw shooters, and that's about what you got out of them. I think after 3 to 5 games, you can look at the stat sheets a little bit more than what you can tonight. I'm going to go back to my original thought of what you take out of this basketball game. And this is a deep, deep, deep basketball team. Like, I think that's a great problem to have, but it's also a problem to have because as a first-year coach in Mike Woodson, he's dealing with a lot of guys that the 8th best player on this team could very easily start on this team. And I think it'll be like kind of the old days in IU where we're going to see a whole bunch of different starting lineups throughout this season.
Yeah, because there's a lot of guys that played well. Rob Finney was one that I thought played really comfortable when he was in there at times. He handled the ball. He took some shots, hit some mid-range shots. He hit a three that looked comfortable. He looked a lot more comfortable. He looked the most comfortable I think I've seen him in his career.
Yeah, and I've been to practice and watched these guys and seen how they interact with each other. And Rob Finney looks like the veteran guy who's been around this program the longest, the way he should. And he was smiling and having fun. And you know, he's a perfect example of a guy. Xavier Johnson, you know, transfers in here and he starts in this basketball game. Will we see Rob Finney start? We may see Rob Finney and Xavier Johnson start together throughout the season. And I think Rob will have himself in a position throughout this season where Rob will play a lot of shooting guard, play a lot of two guard, and not just the point guard position. And let me tell you something. If you've got you ever get a team that's got two really good guards on it, well, Indiana's got two really, really good defenders in Xavier Johnson and Rob Finney. And they can take two guys out of a basketball game in a hurry. And that's a pretty big weapon to have.
It's a great weapon to have because that's one of the things they have not had in recent years is depth at guard. And shooters, even though the shooting was really bad tonight, there's too many good shooters on that team. The offense just isn't – they're not in sync yet.
Yeah,
they're not finding the shots, the right guys, not finding the right shots at the right time. I think Parker Stewart, he could be the most dangerous guy on that floor if he heats up.
When he can spread the floor, yeah. When he can spread the floor, he certainly can. Mike Ham makes a great comment there, and I kind of felt the same way about it. When Race picked up his fourth foul with about 13, 14 minutes to go in the game, everything kind of changed. The defensive momentum wasn't there anymore. And having Trace and Race in the lane, I mean, I mentioned the two defenders in Rob and Xavier Johnson out front, but having those two guys in the lane, I mean, no one wanted to go in the lane in the first half. And I think that's a great point, Mike. And, you know, I definitely think Race Thompson, I don't even know what his stat line was tonight. He had 5 points, 2 of 6.
He was, I sent out a text. He was very active early. He had 6 rebounds in like the first 9 minutes of the game.
Yeah, he had 10 rebounds. Think about this. And I can remember 2 of them, and I'm sure most of the fans can as well. But he had 10 rebounds and 3 assists. 2 of those assists were alley-oop dunks to Trace Jackson Davis running the floor. So, you know, he played an all-around good game, and I think you're right. I think that he was a guy who really did a good job of you know, I don't want to say he's the continuity or he's the glue to the team, but I think he has a calming presence back there, and he and Trace together in that lane, I think everyone feels like they can be aggressive defensively, because if you send your guy into the lane and that's who they're running into, you feel pretty confident that you're going to come away with a defensive rebound.
Jeff says, looked a lot like last year's team.
Shot a lot like last year's team. Didn't look a lot like it. I'm not disagreeing with you. Everyone can have their opinions. I don't think they looked like last year's team at all. I think they shot the ball like last year's team. But
you played on teams that had tons of shooters. We talk about this all the time. You were one of them. What is the problem of not being comfortable? And you know you got guys out there that can shoot. Miller Kopp was over, I think, and he's a good shooter. As a matter of fact, what a great job he did on that inbounds play right at the half, gets the ball, creates space, gets the shot off, draws the foul, hits the shot, and the free throw. Nice three-point play the old-fashioned way, but he was 0 for 3 behind the line. I don't know what it is about these Indiana guys for some reason not shooting the ball well. Is it just comfort right now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I'm going to go back to what I said a minute ago, and I think I'll take a 3 to 5 game synopsis or summary of the stats and look at it at that point. It's very hard to look at one game and say, okay, well, I mean, what if a guy had gone 8 for 9 from the 3-point line? We wouldn't say he's going to shoot 80% or 90% from the 3-point line all year long. So let's not jump off board right away. I'll tell you tonight, Race Thompson himself was 0 for 4 from the 3-point line. I've been to practice, and I will tell you, they are encouraging him to shoot it, and he was the best 3-point shooter in practice when I watched him. So he will continue to shoot it, and he will make them. He may not average 4 a game, but he'll average shooting 2 or 3 3-pointers a game and make 1 or 2 of them every game.
And I know they want him shooting, but that's not what he's known for. And doing it in practice and doing it in the game, as you know, are 2 different things.
It is, but you know, I think we're going to fall back on this comment a lot all year long. Mike Woodson's from the NBA. 6'9" or 10 guys step out and make a lot of 3-point shots and outside shots in the NBA, And that's what I think Mike Woodson brings. I think that's what the offense is going to bring. They're going to try to spread the floor. They've got a ton of athletes. Xavier Johnson can get to the rim. Rob Finney can get to the rim. These guys are going to want to spread the basketball or spread the floor out and allow Trace Jackson Davis to work on his own inside, run it through the post, and I think we'll see a lot of. I don't think fans should get upset with seeing Race Thompson out at the three-point line a lot, because the farther he is out of the lane, the more space Trace Jackson Davis has to work.
Is it something that all this stuff is new? We've talked about this. You've got a lot of new faces, a new system, new coaches. Is this just going to take a while for these guys just to gel? Because a fourth of this team was not here last year.
Offensively, for sure. Offensively, it's gonna be difficult to get a lot of momentum, and when guys play together, I think that's probably why we see Rob Finney and Trace Jackson Davis as comfortable as anyone, because they've been here the longest and they've played on the floor together the most. And that there's a lot to be said for that. Whether it's a new system, whether the other cast of characters are new or not, those guys have played on the floor together, and I think they easily look the most comfortable out there. But we will definitely see all of these guys. I mean, Parker Stewart hasn't been on a basketball court in year and a half, 2 years. The fact that he got off to a great start is terrific. We see a lot of people asking the questions: where was Logan Duncombe and Michael Durr and Christian Lander, Anthony Leal? There was a lot of injuries in practice. There was a lot of guys that were just dinged and banged up a little bit. But also, I thought it was tough to find minutes for the guys who did play. Imagine those guys. I mean, I'm not sure Logan Duncombe will play a ton of minutes. I don't think they'll redshirt anyone this year because I don't really think they need to. But I mean, from a years of eligibility standpoint, I think it seems like you can get 6 years out of the NCAA anymore anyway. So. It's going to be a different situation. I think probably the guy who we will see a lot more of and will squeak his way into the starting lineup will be Tamar Bates. I mean, we didn't see a lot of him tonight, and to me, I think he's probably the most talented offensive player on the team.
You had 9 guys that played at least 14 minutes or more. That's a lot for the lowest guy to play at 14 minutes.
Yeah, it is, and Bates was probably one of those that was one of the lower amount of minutes. And honestly, it's going to, I think there's going to be a lot of situations this season when we're going to say, how is that guy not playing more? Because, and that's a credit. That's not a knock on the coaches. That's a credit to how skilled this team is 9 deep. And look at what I'm saying, 9 deep. Anthony Leal might be the best shooter on the team. And I'm not even mentioning him. He didn't even play in the game. And, who knows if Michael Durr at 7 feet tall can contribute to this team, if there's stuff that he can do. That Trace and Race show on the inside, you add OG Geronimo to that thing. I'm calling him OG from now on because he just reminds me of OG Anunoby so much. But, I mean, you add him to that mix, and you've got just thick, physical, tough guys that I'm not sure too many teams want to battle against. Kofi, sure, but just not too many other teams are going to want to battle those 3 guys inside.
Jordan, when he was on the floor, the plus minus was -9, but he was 2 for 5. He had 4 points in those minutes, so he got something done.
4 rebounds in a short period of time.
Help, it looks like.
Well, this is a situation. I think he probably squeaked a few more minutes last year out of maybe than a lot of people thought he would. I mean, he came in as a super under-recruited guy, not highly offered by a lot of schools. And at the end of the day, he's going to be your OG Anunoby. As a senior, he's going to be a fan favorite. He's going to have 85 crazy dunks we're going to watch on video. I mean, did you see the alley-oop? Can't even call it a dunk. It was more of a throw-in. But I mean, only one guy on this team could have caught that ball. Maybe Trace, I guess. But, he's a super talent. And I mean, this is going to be – I've heard people talk over and over again, and I don't really have a reason to knock them, but everyone is saying how deep Purdue is. And this is a different problem for Purdue to have or whatever. Purdue's no deeper than Indiana. And I'm talking the 9th best guy on Indiana's team is more talented than the 9th best guy on Purdue's team. And I'm not saying that to Duncan,
who's matching up with the boy down south. Trey, what's his name?
Exactly. But I mean, think about it. It's a deep team. It's a crazy deep team that it's going to be difficult to find a lot of guys a lot of minutes, and they may be able to play as hard. I think what the coaches will learn from this game more than anything will be, okay, the first half we over exerted ourselves, if there's such a thing. Coaches will say there's not, but we were spent on defense. Like, they worked there. That defensive first half was impressive. And then the second half, you could tell guys with legs were a little tired. That was a early November basketball game.
What is that first game like when you get that? I mean, that's got to take a lot out of you.
And I can tell you, whether it's your first year as a freshman or your senior year, the first game of the year, you come into the game and you run up and down the court 2 times. You got no saliva in your mouth. Your mouth's dry as can be. You can't breathe. It doesn't matter what kind of shape you're in. You're in terrific shape. You've run all summer long and all preseason. It's just different. And you get in the games and your body reacts differently. And I can tell you, these guys in the second half had dead legs. Tomorrow, I'll bet you they'll get a decent amount of rest, and they'll have some recovery time in this. Probably work a little bit on Thursday and be ready for the game on Friday.
And now they have something important, something to look at on film.
Yeah, sure.
And for a coach to go over. Well, just a quick reminder, everybody, we're coming to you from Southern Stone Restaurant here at Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. Great place to eat, where the coaches shows are held. Indiana men's and football and basketball coaches, women's coach show is here as well. The Mike Woodson show each Monday at 7:05 with Don Fisher here. Tom Allen's show still going on Wednesdays at 7:05. Terry Morin is on just before Coach Wooden. They were here this Monday, the very first one. It was great. So looking forward to many more of those, and looking forward to having a lot of meals here, man. This food is crazy good.
And the atmosphere and build out and everything in here is
it's crazy good. Oh yeah, it's like a different place. So make sure you stop by here. Plenty of good places. Getting back to the game, some of these comments want to make. 9 guys scored, as we talked about. All the guys that played, they scored. They played a lot of minutes. The minimum was 14, so that's a lot of minutes to get out of guys. You talked about the guys that didn't get in. I think most of them were hurt. But they're going to have to. What's Christian Lander going to find a spot? And I'm not saying it against him or Durr, like you said. I mean, Race Thompson was being a beast for a while.
Yeah. And here's the difficulty. So, I mean, we talked about it a few minutes ago. Where does Christian Lander, as a kind of a true point guard, work himself into a lineup where you've already got established Xavier Johnson and Rob Finney? I mean, it's going to be difficult. Let's just put it that way. And here's the thing. Think about from an injury standpoint, which Indiana has been hit with, as every team is every year. But, this team has backups that are quality players. And, for Michael Durr to be able to figure out a way to – Logan Duncombe to figure out a way to get themselves in the lineup, I mean, are they going to beat out Race or Trace or Jordan Geronimo? Probably not. But they're there in case of injury. And those guys are quality guys to play against every day in practice. And who knows? I mean, Mike Woodson played and grew up and was raised in the Bob Knight era of literally anybody could start on any given week. And I think early in this season, with the schedule that Indiana has, I think we'll see a lot. I think once the Big Ten season comes around, we'll see the minutes maybe cut back from players 7, 8, 9. But I think early in the season, we're going to see a bunch of different starting lineups, and we're going to see a bunch of minutes all the way down to that 9th and 10th spot.
This is the opportunity for the guys to decide who is going to be that 7th, 8th guy. And that's a hell of a battle because, like you said, the depth is there. And I'm like, I don't know who it's going to be. We don't know who's going to step up, especially looking at tonight's game. You expect more out of Miller Kopp because he's a veteran. He's played for 3 years in the Big Ten. This is not going to be his games. And that kind of shows you that 0 for 3, the out of syncness, because he's shot well at Northwestern. He's done this. So he's done it in Assembly Hall before. So he's just out of sync. The offense is just out of sync. And it's weird, I guess, to see it, but it is just a new offense to them. And how is it different than the motion offense and what was ran before and what you guys ran?
It's much more of a pro style offense where they're in sets a lot like the NBA, which is a good thing in today's basketball. You're not going to recruit kids to come in and probably play the true motion offense. That's just probably not going to happen because they want to get prepared for the NBA. And there's several guys on this basketball team that are going to play in the NBA when it's all said and done. And so, that's what they're being recruited here for, and that's what they're preparing for, and that's what they're playing for. And you're going to have, I mean, think about it. As a backup right now, I think Trey Galloway started a high number of games last year, at least played a whole bunch of minutes. At the beginning of the season, he barely came off the floor. And now he's backing up Miller Kopp, basically, which is a great backup situation to have. And we've got guys, Rob Finnessy, who started almost every game last year. Now he's backing up a guy. Look at the depth we have at these different positions. And I don't want to say you have any drop-off when the starters come out of the game. Sometimes you're going to have improvement. And we're going to really want – that clashes with my red, doesn't it? We're going to really wonder how certain guys don't start more games, I think, when it gets down through the midway of the season, because, I'm way more optimistic than a 68-62 win out of this. It would have been tough to swallow a loss. I wouldn't have been as cheery as I am.
You've got a team that in Eastern Michigan, they're outmanned, but they're not going to quit because they're like, they got on a little run. This is their big game.
This is their big game,
and they got on that run, and they got Indiana tired, and they just caught them. And hey, man, it happens in the NCAA tournament all the time. Somebody just put up that Michigan State was down 7.
Well, Michigan State's going to get smoked tonight by Kansas. That's not surprising. Yeah, they're gonna be down 27 here in a little while, but that's later tonight. That's at 9:00. Yeah, we'll get off the air for that one to come on, but.
Tamar Bates, who does he remind you of anyone? He's kind of a smooth, silky lefty. I'm not going to say Calvert Chaney because it's
a different kind of game, but he
looks body-wise similar to him. No, he doesn't. He's not Calvert. Well, Calvert wasn't.
He's kind of a mixture of a Charlie Miller and a Calvert Chaney with that left-handed smoothness. And
what was Calvert like as a freshman, though? Could you already see it?
Same as he was as a senior. I mean, I hate to be that simple about it, but I mean, Calvert was smooth from day one, and I don't know how, and I don't know why, but he just was. And it's crazy.
Ron Felling taking a night saying, "No, I don't see it."
I don't see it anymore. Well, Coach Knight went to see him play, and Calvert was 3 for 25, and Coach didn't see it in that one, but luckily Felling stuck with it. But Tamar Bates is. I mean, he's probably the most talented offensive player on this team. I mean, I say that. I can't even possibly – I don't even know who I would say is as close. I mean,
he looks like a player.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to keep him out of the starting lineup. And I think you're looking at a Miller Kopp position right there that Miller's going to have to play a lot better than he did tonight in order to continue to have those minutes. But I mean, again, when you look at the start of this basketball game and how this team played – defensively, it was impressive, and it's going to be tough to change that lineup just simply based on how good the defense was.
Mark says they look slow at times and not crisp at times. Oh yeah, that's true. But
first game,
true. I mean, but what the thing is, you got other teams that are playing these big games tonight, and it's luckily that they're not playing something like that.
But you had to know Ohio State played Akron tonight and wins on a last-second shot. I mean, they win by 2 or 1 point at the end of a basketball game. So, I mean, it's early. Nobody knows Ohio State's ranked. I mean, I feel like they're ranked in the top 20.
And here's something I was going to talk about that is a solid point: turnovers. They didn't turn the ball over. And there were times I thought that they looked kind of sloppy, but I looked down, I'm like, well, hell, they only turned the ball over less than 10 times. That was kind of surprising.
Yeah, I think Xavier Johnson turned it over a couple times in a row early in the game. And so it kind of had that feel like they were playing a little bit out of control. But overall, for the most part, I really don't think they did. And look, I think Mike Woodson wants them to push the ball and wants them to get it up and down the court, try to get some easy baskets. It's the NBA mindset. You're willing to take a couple of turnovers here and there. Now, it's not the Tom Crean mindset where we're willing to take a whole bunch of turnovers and run out of bounds all the time. But I think we'll definitely see this team. I'm not going to be concerned with the turnovers until they get to 14 or 15, averaging 14 or 15 in a game, because I think 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is going to be acceptable for a team that's going to play this fast.
Bill, our old friend Bill, good friend of the show, asked, Todd, do you have a different feeling about this team moving forward with Coach Woody at the helm? Well, of course, instead of Archie, that's not a fair question. Of course, I can answer that one for you right now.
Yeah, this team has a totally different feel, and I'll tell you, Coach Woodson and Coach Fife were very generous and let me come to practice and watch the guys. And I literally just sat there and watched. I watched their attitudes and watched how they interacted with each other. And there was a lot of laughing and smiling. Now, when they got to work, but they all liked each other. And I talked to Trey Galloway after practice, and the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Oh my gosh, we all get along so well." And this is a guy who is losing minutes this year, and he's talking about how well they got along with each other.
You were the first person to say it to me probably 2 years ago, but Charlie says it. We just said it the other day on the show, those positive touches. Yeah. And this team has tons of that. Yeah. Didn't see a lot of that before. I remember 2 years or 3, maybe 4 years ago, there was a certain starter that you pointed out was the only one that did not go shake the hands of the officials even. Just down to that.
It was Romeo. You could say it.
Okay.
I'll call him that. It was fact. I didn't make it up.
Yeah, they didn't have that. And so, but that's needed. You have to have that.
It is. And that's something that's going to be magnified and talked about, and a big point of emphasis for Mike Woodson. It's an NBA thing. It's an NBA mindset. It's a big deal. Mike Woodson's used to playing in a season where they are traveling, 80 nights a year. And he's going to be so good for these guys and their early development, mental development, and how they get along with each other. I'm telling you, you'll get tired of me saying it, but in practice, it was fun to watch how much fun they had practicing. And as a person who hated practice, I can tell you that's not an easy thing to accomplish. And early in Mike Woodson's career as a coach, he's done a great job in getting these guys to buy in, enjoy it, enjoy working hard, and understand that they're there for business. But he lets them have fun, and he goes at them. I mean, he cussed as much as Coach Knight does in practice, but in a kind of a funnier way, and as a less direct personal attack, but in a funnier way. But he was just, he looks like a player's coach. He's a fun guy to play for, he looks like.
Chris points out, makes a good point, asking about where was the offensive rebounds. And I look down here, out of 43 total rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, when you miss that many shots, that's kind of surprising. So that catches you off guard. That's a little bit surprising. That'll be brought up. The stat sheet probably won't be too many things on here that are brought up, but I think that'll be one. I think that'll be a point of emphasis that they'll look at and worry about. Look, it's game 1. Let's analyze the stats over 3 games and 5 games. At that point, and I'm the most critical in the world. The first thing I do whenever a stat sheet pops up is look at the shooting, look at the free throw shooting, and so I'm as guilty as anybody of it. But I think in this case, you got a first-year coach and a whole bunch of brand new players, and we'll just give them a little bit of leeway.
That's kind of a funny stat. Trace Jackson-Davis passed Isaiah Thomas' career total points at IU. Well, Isaiah was only there for 2 years.
Yeah, but Trace has only been here for 2 years and 1 game.
That's true. That's not bad.
That's not bad.
And none of those were 3-point shots. That's for damn sure. And not many free throws.
If he'd have made his free throws, he'd have passed him last year in about December.
What else? Anything else stand out from a first game?
I don't know if it's anything else, but I'll just belabor the point and say I think that this team gets along, smiled, had fun. I think that they will realize, look, here's a positive spin that I'll take on this, and I think this is what the coaches will take out of this. They might not verbalize it to the players, but you can look at, do you gain more out of a 68-62 win than you do out of a 98-62 win? Because these guys' heads inflate just a little bit more in a 98-62 win than they do in this. And this actually shows them, hey, we've got some stuff to work on. We've got to be better in this area. There's some things we got to tighten up. And I think that they'll come out of 68-62 win better today. Now, we'd have all loved for him to shot 55% from the 3-point line and made 90% of the free throws. But I think they can learn something and take it positively out of a 68-62 win.
A unique comment. What about seeing Tamar Bates and Lander on the floor. He's so quick, and they talked about his quickness and how he's come around, and I can't wait to see it because he is lightning fast with the ball, and he could do a lot, but we haven't seen what he can do.
Yeah, Christian Lander, you're talking about? Yeah, I don't know that we're going to see a lot of that. And hey, I'm a Christian Lander fan, and I'll tell you this, because I did get to go to practice, which is, go ahead, start making fun of me for how many times I've said that. But because I did, I will tell you this. 2 players stayed after practice and worked longer. Well, actually, everybody stayed and worked a little bit longer. 2 players stayed for an extra hour after practice was over. One of them was Christian Lander, and one of them was Rob Finnessy, the oldest player and one of the newest players, the youngest player. And he actually probably is the youngest player on the team, even though he's not a freshman. He's still probably the youngest player on the team. So that's a good sign. And Christian sticking with this program tells you Christian's going to give it 100% effort on trying to make it work at Indiana, because in today's basketball NCAA world, 95% of the Christian Landers from last season would have transferred to a school they knew they were going to start and play at this coming season. I think he sees the value in what Mike Woodson can do for him.
Yeah, we all thought that long. It's still,
for sure.
I'm talking about this. Everyone still thinks that you should have taken the last shot against Duke.
Yeah. I would have liked to have, trust me.
A lot of other people would like to. That's it too. Sorry, no offense, Jamal. We love you to death.
Offend Jamal. He's tough. He can take it.
Let's see. Michelle, impressed with Xavier Johnson's speed. Love the full court layup at the end.
You know what? Xavier Johnson, think about what he accomplished coming in here. Now, you got Mike Woodson, so it wasn't him who was doing the lineups last year. But Xavier Johnson came in here and started over a guy who started here for basically 3 years in Rob Finnessy. And he just brings a toughness, point guard mentality to the floor. Now, his shot leaves a lot to be desired. That's a position you're going to get some points in him going to the rim. Obviously, getting to the free throw line. I think he shot, 8 free throws tonight. So he got himself to the free throw line. But that's one guy that they need to take to a shooting coach pretty quickly.
So yeah, they got the first game out of the way, and like I said, they've got tape to look at, and they're going to learn from this. And Mike Woodson was teaching all night. How many times did he call timeout? I know there was one where they got lazy on defense down along the in front of the other team's court bench and just let an easy 3-point shot go up, and right away he called a timeout.
Yeah, and look, this is a film. This is awesome. They've got something to go look at. They had the Bahamas games they could look at. They had the secret scrimmage that wasn't very secret, that they got to look at some of that game film. And this is live game action that counted, stats count. They get to go in and make a lot of corrections. Defensively, they're not going to be correcting a whole lot in the first 12 minutes of this basketball game on the defensive end of the floor, because, man, they were as good as any team in the country, bar none. They were as good as Virginia defensively tonight in the first 12 minutes of the game. I think they got tired. I think they got some dead legs. The second half, they gave up a lot more driving lanes. And Race Thompson, that was a great point Mike made earlier. Race Thompson's picking up his 4th foul with almost 14 minutes to go was a big difference in not having him in there on the defensive end of the court.
John, I'm not sure. Do we have any highlights, any videos?
I didn't have time when I got home.
No worries. We'll have it next time. We're working on something new this year. We're going to have highlights for you guys, so that's going to be great. Looking forward to that. And we'll be able to try to get some clips of Coach Woodson's postgame press conference in here so we can see what he had to say, because I'll leave the game like just a couple minutes to go and race over here. It would be interesting to hear what he had to say after the game. What are you looking at?
Nothing. Some of these comments get pretty funny, but I don't even know what you're saying. Sorry.
I was asking what do you think Coach Woodson is going to say after this?
You know what? I think he's going to be very calm, like he is most of the time. He's gonna send them home, and he's gonna say, guys, tomorrow we're going to watch a lot of this film. He'll take the coaching tactic of they'll act like they've got a ton of film to look at. So that they use a whole bunch of time up doing that. And really get these guys to rest their legs a little bit. These guys were spent in the second half. I don't care although Trace Jackson Davis probably had the highlight of his career, and we're going to see it all season long when he blocks the shot at one end of the court and catches an alley-oop dunk, pushing one of his own players out of the way to run down the court as hard as he can on the other end of the floor. And that's a highlight when they are looking at how high he's going to get drafted next season. That's a highlight they're going to show over and over again, I'm pretty sure, because that's one you don't get to see very often and shows his athletic ability and his effort out on the court. And I think they'll show some plays like that tomorrow too. Tomorrow won't be all negatives. I think one of the things the NBA that Mike Woodson will bring from the NBA was they'll focus a lot on the positives. There was a lot of positive things they did, especially on the defensive end of the court. They moved the ball really well and got a lot of open shots. 4 for 24 from the free throw line. They're not going to be able to show a lot of makes, but they're going to be able to show a lot of open looks. And that's a positive thing. If they can knock down them, this game is a totally different game if they shoot 40% from the three-point line and make 60 or 70% of their free throws. So I know that's a lot of ifs, but those are stats that should happen.
Of course, asked how can a young guy get tired and understand what you're saying, but game situations, you cannot mimic those in practice. You can't mimic the runs that you have to go on. You can't mimic the body, the pounding that you take in a game. You can't mimic that in practice, and you have to get to that point, I think.
Yeah, Forrest, I'm going to answer this, and I hope this doesn't come across offensive because I don't mean it this way, but it's really the best way that I can give you that answer is if you're asking that question, you've never played in a Big Ten Division I basketball game, because I'm going to tell you, I don't care what kind of physical shape that you're in. When you go a million miles, that's why I respect the guys in the NBA. I don't think it's stupid when they take nights off. It sucks that kids pay money to go watch them play when LeBron shows up and he doesn't play in a game at the Pacers because he's resting. But I get it, because it is difficult to go out there and play 40 minutes in a college basketball game and go 100 miles an hour the entire time. I don't care if you're 19 years old or 49 years old. It doesn't matter. It's not easy to do. And that's why you get so impressed with some guys like Calbert Chaney and those type guys who were able to do it and don't lose a step. But don't kid yourself in thinking their age is going to keep them from being tired out there.
Bo asked, do you know if any of the assistant coaches are shot doctors? And I don't think that they are, that's what they're here for. I think they're more recruiting and doing other things. But there's other people that they have in there that are doing that now. And Woodson is probably one of those. You were there.
I don't know. I didn't see it. I'll just be honest with you. I saw them shooting a lot, but I didn't see anybody working on fundamentals and mechanics. And that was disappointing. I'll be honest with you about that. Now, I think that's the norm. Look, we've been through Mike Davis and Tom Crean and Kelvin Sampson and all the Archie Miller and all the coaches. I've been to practices for all of those coaches, and I've not seen any of them have a coach that focused on shooting technique and improving your technique. And I honestly, I think that's probably the reason why we see the shooting as the way it is. When
you were playing, it probably wasn't needed as much because you guys were shooters.
Yeah, that's not true. That's not true. Like we had, I give him credit all the time, and he wasn't that good of a shooter. And I remember thinking it at the time. But Dan Dockich was a really, really good teacher of your mechanics and your fundamentals of shooting, and he could kind of spot things. And he kind of taught me to learn to spot things that guys are doing or that you're doing wrong. And he would give you little tips here and there or whatever. And I've always given Coach Dockich the credit for why we shot the ball the way we did. And we had 7 guys, I think, that shot 40% from the 3-point line on one team. And a lot of that is, yes, a lot of us were good shooters originally, but we definitely got better when we were there. Damon Bailey improved as a shooter. Greg Graham immensely improved as a shooter. I guarded Greg Graham in high school, and I can assure you we laid off of him because he could go around me, but he couldn't make it over me. So, I think that's the one thing. I think that's one thing all college basketball misses. I mean, they focus so much on recruiting that these coaches are brought in to help recruit, and I think they miss out on some of the fundamental parts of the game.
Are they afraid to run these guys off, or are they afraid to change? Because guys come in, they've got their shot, but if they need help, they need help. So what's the reluctance to do that, especially when there's not hitting the ball?
And so here's what I keep thinking is going to happen. Okay, so I think the coaches' answers to our questions and the comments that we see are, well, those are things that you work on in the off season. Okay, so that's what these guys did all summer long, and I could buy into that, except for I critically and very technically watch guys on Indiana that are still there and have been there for years. I watch their fundamentals and their form. I do show up early, not to just smooze with it, Scott Dolson, but to walk out there and watch these guys warm up and see what they're doing right and wrong. And I don't see a lot of differences. I don't see guys that have changed or improved some of the things that they were technically doing wrong last year and the year before. They're still doing them. And for that, I'll say I don't know that they did work on that. Do I think they shot a bunch of basketballs over the summer? Yes. Do I think that someone worked with them on their technique? If they did, they didn't hold them to changing a lot of things, because I still see them making a lot of critical errors.
That's the one thing I don't get. But
I don't either. But you could say the same thing. Every coaching staff that's been here, the same situation has happened. So I think it's just the atmosphere and what it is in college basketball. Most of these coaches that are on these sidelines are there for recruiting. I think that's one thing that people need to understand.
And they've changed the rule, though, because now you can have guys that are not among those four coaches work with guys. And I would think that that's a godsend for that very thing.
I'll give him my phone number. Coach Fife has my number. Coach Woodson has my number. I will do it for free, and I will show up, and I will promise you we wouldn't be 4 for 24 anymore. If
Derek listened to the post game with Coach, and he said that he didn't say much different than what we've said. So first of all, I feel good about that we're not off the mark, but just keep pushing on the pedal. And yeah, I understand that, but you've got to fix some things as well as keep pushing that pedal. And the shooting is an issue that we've seen before. So we know that that's a problem that's got to be addressed.
Yeah, and one of the things that you don't want to let get in your head, because it can get in your head just like missing free throws and momentum and those things, is you don't want to get in the habit of giving up leads. Because how many times do we see teams do that, where if they're ahead big in a ball game and they give up a lead, and they do that 2 or 3 different times, it kind of becomes a stigma, and it becomes something that they have to start thinking about, which you don't want to be thinking about when you're out there. You want to be thinking about exactly what Coach Woodson is saying, is put the pedal down. When you're up 19 or 17 at half or whatever it was, you build on that and you keep it going, and you go out and you forget. It's difficult. And I know this was probably the best thing that Coach Knight was able to do in the time that I played for him was one, we took one game at a time. Every game was as important as the next one, because if you looked ahead and at trying to beat Purdue and you lost to Northwestern, you did not want to be at that practice the next day. Trust me. So we learned that lesson the hard way a couple times. And then also, you don't worry about what the score is. I can assure you there was a lot of times in ball games. Now you want to know the score and time when it's a close ball game, but when you're up 15 or 20 points, you want to take that totally out of your mind, and you want to play every possession hard the way you would if it was tied. And that's how the lead goes from 15 to 25. Instead of worrying about it's 15, all right, let's start slowing the ball down a little bit. Let's start using a little more clock. One thing I thought they did great tonight, at the very end of the ball game, when it got down to a 5-point game, I do think whether the coaches got to them or the players did it on their own, they did back it out, and they did make sure Trace touched the ball. And that's a big factor. And that'll be an even bigger factor going down the road. But the fact that everyone is bought into that system already, no one was out there. Parker Stewart wasn't out there saying, I'll save us. I'm going to stand out here and jack up threes. No, they took their time. They got the ball to the guard where it needed to be. They threw it inside. I think Trace shot it a couple times. Once he got fouled, he kicked it out to guys. They made the right plays. They didn't make the shots a lot of the times when they made the right plays, but they made the right plays a lot of times.
Don't want to forget to remind you, we're here at Southern Stone Restaurant at the corner of Rogers and Patterson here in Bloomington. Great location, a great place. The coaches show is here, the IU basketball coaches show, the football coaches show. Mike Woodson show here every Monday at 7:05 with Fish. Tom Allen is Wednesdays at 7:05 as well. Terry Moore is before Coach Woodson on Monday, by the way. There was something else I was going to ask. Now I dropped the comment. Oh, that actually Friday is exactly what I was going to ask about. All right, you said tomorrow they'll probably rest, look at some film, go over things. Then you've got Wednesday, Thursday. They're not going to fix any shooting by Friday, but you got another game Friday, which is probably the best thing that they could have.
Sure. Yeah, it really is. And getting back out on the court, like having 2 days, tomorrow they'll work a little bit. They'll get their legs going for probably 25% of the time they normally would. Thursday, they'll go at it a little bit more, and then game day again on Friday. And that's a great schedule. Whoever set that up, this team worked out perfectly for them because that's exactly what they need right now. They need a little tiny break, and then they need to get back on the court and fix some of the things that are on here and improve on some of the things that they did really well in this game. Now, there's a lot of positives out of this. Let's not take 68-62 and think there's a ton of negatives out of it. They didn't shoot the ball well. Okay. We'll all agree to that. Nobody can look at those stats and say they did. But I think the coaches are not going to be near as pissed as I think a lot of the fans are in looking at it. And I can certainly tell you, the positive touches, the positive interaction with these guys together, to me, is worth several points every game. And they're going to work hard for each other. They're going to fight for each other. They don't run over and help each other up because the coaches force them to. I always felt like in the teams in the last 4 years, they were forced to go do things for guys that I'm not sure they thought were the greatest teammates in the world. Then that's not the way with this team. They all like each other, and they all want to help each other, and you don't see that with this many transfers and new guys and new coaching staff that often. It's not that easy to accomplish. And we can go back and give Scott Dolson a ton of credit for bringing in this staff. We can also give Mike Woodson a lot of credit for what he's built there, and we can give these players a lot of credit because they've bought into a system that, there wasn't a whole lot going for it at this time last year. And 12 months later, we're looking at a pretty exciting situation going forward, I think.
And you said the important thing, one game you cannot look at. You got to get 5 games in. They're going to have another game like this. They may have 2 games. They may have, who knows, but it's going to happen. It happens to every team. You don't have good nights. But right now it's not about that. It's about just gelling. And it's just, and Mike Woodson has said it over and over. He's not lying. And that's the thing I love about him. He's as honest about everything. He tells you the truth. He said it. He's been saying this team is just, they've got to come together. And you've got so many different personalities, so many different styles that you just talked about are welding together. The transfers, Xavier, Miller Kopp, Tamar Bates, who's a young guy. That's just so much to weave together. And then the guys who are already here. That's a lot to weave together.
And look, here's like, this is for example of what they'll talk about tomorrow. Okay. They'll look at Parker Stewart in this game. Parker Stewart shot 2 for 5 in this basketball game. Well, he took 3 of those shots in the first 2 minutes of the ball game. Okay. So that means for the remaining 38 minutes, he only took 2 shots.
I did not like that.
Well, that's something that they will get him to focus on and get Trace Jackson Davis to focus on and realize in the second half, okay, wait a minute. Why is Parker not taking any shots? He made 2 shots in the first 2 minutes of this game and didn't make any more shots for the game. Later in the year, Rob Finnessy, Xavier Johnson, Trace Jackson Davis will recognize that and get him more involved, get him a couple more open looks, because that's a guy that can get on a hot streak and knock him down. We saw him start the game out and knock him out. He got his team jump-started at the beginning of the game. He makes 2 threes. All of a sudden, we get another layup. It's 8-0, and we're talking, if that doesn't happen, it's 2-0. 6 minutes into the game, and that's not fun. That's a difficult fight to get out of. So Parker got him going, and then nobody picked Parker up in the second half. That's what one of the things that I don't know that people understand. So when we were in school, at halftime, when they would come in, we'd get a stat sheet. Like, they'd bring stat sheets into us, and you would see it, and the coaches would go through it with you, because they would go through that exact situation of, hey, you took 2 shots in the first 3 minutes of the play. You played for 13 total minutes. How did you not get any other shots off? Like, we got to get him involved.
That's one thing I never heard. I did not know that. And that's an incredible thing. That's something I don't know why they don't do now.
And I don't know that they don't. I'm sure with the NBA atmosphere of Mike Woodson, they probably do. But that's a definite situation. And like, I don't see very well. Neither one of us do. And I can barely see my stat sheet in front of me here, but like, that's just me looking at it real quickly. I'm sure we could find 4 or 5 more of those instances on there of things that the coaching staff will focus on tomorrow when they're going through the game film, because that's not just Parker Stewart's. You've got to do this better. That is Trace. We got to recognize that and get him those shots.
Who's it on? I was going to ask you. Who's
on the guard? Ultimately, it's on the people that have the ball in their hands. So it's going to be Xavier and Rob Fennessy for the most part. But it's on everybody for that matter. Everyone, I think right now, if we polled them, and I have absolutely no idea, but if we polled them and said, who's the best shooter on the team, I would say Parker Stewart's name would probably come out of their mouth in the first 1, 2, or 3 guys they would mention. If not all saying number 1, I don't know. Anthony Leal's name would come out of there, but those names would come out. So in saying that, they would look at Parker Stewart and say, okay, yeah, we have to get him more involved in the second half. That's why our offense struggled the way that it did. And if he knocks down 2 threes, it just gets the momentum going. Him knocking down some outside shots makes it easier on Trace Jackson-Davis. When you start to get these guys realizing that if I get that guy going, it's going to make it easier on me, that's what Calbert Chaney figured out early on in his career. Calbert Chaney still to this day leads the Big Ten all-time scorer, and I can't tell you a single shot in 4 years the guy ever forced. I don't think he ever took a shot where you were like, yeah, he's ball hogging it just a little bit out there. Never, not one, not in 4 years, not in any game, not whether it was Eastern Michigan or Purdue. It didn't matter. The guy just played within the rhythm of the offense, and we all kind of understood that. And I think Eric Anderson knew he was going to get shots a lot easier if he got Calbert the ball and Calbert was open. If they're focusing on him, it's easier for another guy. And I think Trace is understanding that. Trace looked super confident and comfortable out there today. I think we're going to see a different – stats are great. His All-American stats, they're great. But I think we're going to see a lot more leadership out of Trace this year.
Well, it seems like it's been a lot more fun for you. You seem happy. I'm
thrilled. That's 68-62. I don't care. It was fun to watch.
And I know that, like I said, fans were maybe not happy about how close the game got, but just enjoy it. It's the first game. Basketball season is here. That's the most important thing. I think a lot of people are looking forward to. Back out at Simon Scott Assembly Hall for the first time in 2 years. I forgot about that. I was there last year.
How about the Big Ten Network? You didn't get to see it. The Big Ten Network now is showing introductions. They showed the whole introduction prior to the game. It was pretty. Wow, it was pretty sweet. Yeah,
that's amazing. Wow. Pretty cool. Yeah, I didn't get to see that, but man, it's been an absolute blast here tonight. Cannot thank all of you guys enough. But everyone here at Southern Stone Restaurant, of course, Cody does a tremendous job, the GM here, owner Mike Ross. This place is phenomenal. If you haven't been here, it's where the IU basketball coaches shows are. It's where the IU football coaches shows are as well. So you need to stop by either on any day, actually. The brunches are nuts. That's another thing, the brunch. Oh. It's all too good. I can't, just too much, but we're back here on Friday, so we get to do this again. So maybe you need to have some meals out here set out. Next time we're gonna have some food set out here, man, because I did not get to eat there. The food was gone when I got to the game already. At least they normally feed us, but nothing. I got nothing and liked it. But it was a great night. It's been so much fun. It's always fun when we're with you guys, though, man. This is just the funnest thing that we get to do.
A bunch of great comments tonight.
Tremendous, and I look forward to doing this again with you guys on Friday. I'll be back tomorrow, of course, on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Make sure you tune in then. Until then, for Todd Leary, I'm Jim Coyle from the Southern Stone Restaurant here in Bloomington. I'll see you on the radio.